I would like to welcome Mrs. Valerie Huber, architect of Geneva Consensus Declaration and former special representative for global women's health in Department of Health and Social Affairs of United States. I would like to ask Mrs. Valerie to tell us about the idea of the Geneva Consensus Declaration. Mrs. Valerie Huber, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And it's such an honor to be here with all of you today. I have to say that working with the nations to draft the Geneva Consensus Declaration was without question one of the most meaningful accomplishments in my service to the people of America under President Trump. The reason I say it's meaningful is because the Geneva Consensus Declaration was historic. It is powerful because it promotes real health advantages for women around the world while also protecting each nation's sovereign right to make laws on the core tenets of the Geneva Consensus Declaration. As many of you know, for decades, there has been a relentless and highly funded campaign around the world to strategically do a couple of things. The first is to declare abortion as a universal human right, and also to undermine the family as critical and as the backbone of society. The fact of the matter is that this controversial agenda has co-opted meaningful advances for women and their health around the world. Too many women are needlessly dying or suffering lifelong consequences to health risks that we already know the cure, we already know the prevention, but because abortion has become the co-opting agenda for women's health, women are needlessly suffering. Well, the Trump administration really saw the need to work with other countries, not just work by ourselves to defend life, but we understood that working together, we all could be stronger. And the Geneva Consensus Declaration was the first ever strategic international effort against this hostile agenda to promote abortion as a human right. Even the media, together with pro-life organizations and the president himself, cited the Geneva Consensus Declaration and the resulting coalition as one of the most significant and long-lasting accomplishments of the Trump administration in concert with other countries to promote life internationally. And it's very significant because this is not just the United States efforts, but it's all of us working together. Here are the pillars. And these pillars are very reasonable because just as was said just a few moments ago, these are not new concepts. These are adopted from documents that were agreed to by the member states. And so this should be a very non-controversial document for which many, if not most countries should affix their signatures. And here are the pillars. First of all, as we said earlier, promoting women's health. The second, the family as foundational to society. The third is the protection of life and making it very clear that there is no international right to abortion. And finally, the sovereignty of nations to legislate on these issues. Those particular pillars are key not only to the Geneva Consensus Declaration, but also to the bond of the coalition of countries who affixed their names to it. And just as was said earlier, here are screenshots of high-level government officials in each of the European countries that partnered with the United States on the Geneva Consensus Declaration. We're so pleased that Hungary agreed to be the regional leader, led by Minister Novak. And then shortly thereafter, Poland joined the Geneva Consensus Declaration. And what was especially significant here is that almost immediately after the Minister of Foreign Affairs addressed the ceremonial signing of the Geneva Consensus Declaration, Poland then released their new pro-life policies. And we so appreciate their courage in doing that and the timing. Long an advocate for the family, Belarus was next to join. And then after the signing of the Geneva Consensus Declaration, Georgia also joined. And we're just wondering who might be next, because we realize that these core pillars of the GCD are not uniquely appreciated by only those 4 European nations, but there are others as well. What's really significant about the Geneva Consensus Declaration and the resulting coalition is that 35 nations representing every single major region of the world are represented as collaborators on this. And it's a very diverse group. These nations may disagree on certain issues, but on these core pillars, they said not only we agree, but we commit to work together on this. Well, only 8 days into his administration, President Biden made it very clear that the United States was going to withdraw from the Geneva Consensus Declaration. And shortly thereafter sent a démarche to all of the signing countries, making note that the United States was no longer a member. But the beauty of the Geneva Consensus Declaration is that that only means that instead of 35 nations, there are now 34. And in fact, just as was true during my term serving in the Trump administration, there were many countries that we did not agree on every single issue, but we still collaborated and worked together. The same is true for those countries that signed on to the Geneva Consensus Declaration or those who will sign in the future. Just because the United States removed its name from this particular coalition should not be a disincentive for other countries to join in partnership, because this coalition is more important than ever before. The fact of the matter is that diplomacy is key even when there are areas where we disagree. And there is a narrative that is being communicated that if there is not total agreement on all of these controversial topics, that no diplomatic relations can genuinely be pursued. We know that's not true. And the price tag for driving a wedge between countries on these important issues, promoting women's health and promoting life and the family, really has a price tag affixed to it. And it really is the expansion of health for women. And unfortunately, this really is the human cost to putting an agenda of special interest groups above those core principles that are essential for our survival and are core to our individual countries. So for the sake of improving the health and lives of all women around the world and in our own countries, we must persist. We must stay together. The Geneva Consensus Declaration and this coalition must remain strong. And the exciting thing is that the Geneva Consensus Declaration is still open for more countries to join. I'm so appreciative of our colleagues from Brazil who have graciously agreed to take more member states as members of this coalition, and we appreciate their leadership in this. And speaking for myself, I hope that we also can work here in the United States to build a strong surrogate voice for the United States. And we're working on that right now, that can speak into the importance of this coalition, and that the United States, even though the executive branch is not supportive, Our NGOs, our members of Congress, and others of high significance here in the United States can be a part of this as a surrogate voice. In addition to that, if you are an NGO, we invite you to become a friend of the Geneva Consensus Declaration. More to come on that, hopefully very soon. I will not sugarcoat it. I expect the pressure for countries to liberalize their abortion laws to continue. I expect the pressure for countries to undermine the family to continue, and for pressure to undermine the sovereign right of countries to make their own laws on this. I expect it to continue. But what we do now together and over the next few years for the preservation of the pillars of this declaration have never been more important. These pillars that are so important to our countries and what are core to our countries: health, life, family, sovereignty. Together, we really are stronger, stronger for those yet to take their first breath, stronger for those about to take their last, and for the health of lives in between those two markers. Together, we together are stronger, stronger for the families who are critical to the health of our societies, to our nations, and to our children. Together, we are stronger, defending each of our nation's rights to make laws on these pillars. And if your nations have joined, I want to say thank you so much. And we together need to thank those nations often to bolster their resolve to stand firm. But if your nation yet has not joined, it isn't too late. And indeed, we are collectively much stronger together when we bind together in this coalition. And if you're an NGO, you are really critical to help preserve the values in your country. And we hope that you'll become a friend of the GCD. Let me know if you're interested. My email address is there, and we are working very hard in the United States here to support all of you around the world. Thank you so much, my friends. It's an honor to be here together. And indeed, we are all stronger when we work together.